we decide that we want to brainstorm and workshop the idea of creating a community membership today. Obviously, you're an absolute expert. I think that you're probably an idea person as well. We could probably think of a lot of ideas. If we did do some brainstorming to create another community membership, what are some topics or ideas that you have in mind? Like, who would it be for, and why would we build it?
Sure. So let's just start with some terms. So I think about building communities, but what's interesting is, communities can get monetized or generate revenue from communities through four kind of key ways. So number one would be a paid membership, but that's not the only way to do it. There's also courses, challenges, and events. Like those are sort of the big four revenue generating streams from a community. And the way I define community is bringing people together such that they meet and build relationships with each other on the path to results and transformation. So the reason I think that's so important to start there is because that gives context to how I'm going to answer the question. The beautiful thing about creating these kinds of businesses is that they can truly help people. So who are the people who are the most motivated to join a community? Who are the people who are most motivated to contribute to that community? Who are the most motivated people to invite new people into that community? Guess what? It comes down to one kind of person, and that is a person who is in a transition. So the super shorthand for how to do this is pick a person in a transition. So now we can start thinking about and brainstorming, okay, well, who are people in transitions? And what are the most interesting transitions that people will pay to be a part of a membership, a course, a challenge, or go to an event related to that transition? So I'll throw that back at you to start. When you think about people in transitions, what are some of the ones that you're like, oh my gosh, that would be an amazing community?
So I get the whiteboard marker then.
Yes, you do.
I would think of people. This is an interesting one that comes up to mind. My dad just had a liver transplant 48 hours ago.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's been a busy week for me.
Yeah. Why are we on this call right now? Like, why are we doing this interview?
That's a whole other episode.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh.
I just got back in town. They actually do the surgery. The only place they do it in the where I live is about 4 hours from here. Things went really well. He's
good.
Doing quite well, and he is now recovering. And so I'm back home being a dad and a creator again. That's why we're doing this. Plus, life experiences come up all the time, so you got to fit great episodes in where you can. Yeah, without it being a whole episode, let's get back to the topic of nutrition. So that's where I was going to go. So a big part of him having a liver transplant and then going from, okay, now I want to preserve this nice younger liver I've received, maybe getting into something like switching my diet or exercise would be a good example. Maybe somebody who starts golf. That's a big topic that I appreciate because I think it's kind of like therapy. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, I can't. I tried once and I'm not going to. So beginner golfers, transition, maybe heading off to college. I mean, I could keep going, but...
That's right. Because every person on the planet goes through not one or two, but a significant number of transitions in their lives. And so every single one that you just mentioned, plus, again, a whole set, this is actually one of my favorite use cases for any of the ChatGPT or Claude or any of them, is helping you brainstorm transitions. This is the cheat code. This is the cheat code. So what's beautiful about transitions is each one of the ones that you just mentioned, it's not the generic nutrition. It's how do we build a community for people who have had a significant surgery? Significant surgery. Think about their nutrition. Or how to help beginner golfers who have basically tried and failed before. That's a really just like, and what's beautiful about this is that when you are this clear about the people in transition who you serve and the results in transformation, or what I call their best year ever, when you're clear about these things, you can go in minutes and start pitching people and start talking to people. And what's great about this is that it means that you can do this very quickly and you can charge for it because people pay attention to what they pay for. People want this and need this kind of community that's helping them navigate a transition in their lives. Again, some transitions are things that happen to you, and other transitions are things that you raise your hand and say, I want this. I want to go from point A where I'm terrible at golf to point B where I'm decent to point C where I'm actually really good. And it really comes down to focus and motivation. And if you can find people in transition, or when you find people in transition, they tend to be the people with the most motivation.
I feel like being an idea person that I could sit here and brainstorm forever. Like one of the big ones that's close to my heart is being an adoptive parent, right? So adopting our daughter and what it takes to build attachment, some advice for new parents around, like, I've read some incredible books called Attaching and Adoption, Whole Brain Child. You could go down the list of what good resources are, but a lot of people don't want to read those books. So even when they adopt, they're going to put that book on their bedside table. They'll never touch it. They'll struggle with, when a kid's tantruming or something around supporting them through their trauma, and kind of wonder why. And you don't want to be that person that's like, oh, well, I know why. What would be nice is to have something like a community where people can bounce these ideas off of each other, be mutually supportive. I could think of many other ideas. The painting behind me has my two younger brothers' ashes in it because my dad painted it after they passed away. And I often write about grief and how finding writing was one of my transitions from sitting with my own grief into being able to express it and channel the emotion and energy.
Can I offer something? Just,
yeah, of course.
So first of all, it's amazing that you are an adoptive parent. That's awesome. My mom has adopted 7 kids, and it's so as you're talking about attachment parenting, I'm like, yeah, I get that. That's super important. I also, though, want to flag one thing that is another kind of, oh, really? Oh, yeah, I guess when you say it out loud, that makes sense, which is it's not about advice. It's about people coming together to share their stories, their experiences, and their ideas as they are navigating frameworks. And this is really, really important. So, for example, historically, the way that people were able to put frameworks out there were through books, were through then audiobooks, then through kind of the first generation of online courses, which were essentially all the really boring parts of learning with none of the actual fun parts of learning. So if we think about school, it was always like, how do we go through school together with other people? But online courses showed up and they're like, hey, we can make videos of the instructor droning on and then have some PDFs. And by the way, oh my gosh, that's passive income. This is so amazing. And the reality is that the reason why people learn anything is that they are able to understand a framework and then work with other people to apply that framework into their own lives. And so the challenge with communities that are based on advice is advice shuts a community down. It shuts conversations down. And then it also creates a lot of hesitation on the part of the host of the community, or what we call hosts, because they're like, oh my gosh, like, what if people are giving bad advice in the community? So one of the things that I'm a huge believer in is no advice. Share your stories, share your experiences, share your ideas, and make that the cultural norm of your community or of your course. And so it's, oh, I took the framework and this is what I'm navigating right now, and here's what worked for me. It may or may not work for you, but at least I'm going to share my story.
That idea of no advice is so far down the line of advice to kind of discern a little bit. Like when you read something, be a critical thinker, right? Like if I were to pick a piece of curriculum that really helps high school kids, it would be like how to think critically, which is something I definitely didn't learn until into my 20s. But to go as far as to say that explicitly, like don't even create the advice, create a culture around the idea that we all have a story to share. It may help, it may not help. You got to try it for yourself, apply it and see what happens.
Right. And what we're here to do together is apply, learn, share our stories of application. And if we do this right, it is a much more effective way of building new practices, changing habits, and, you know, put your business hat on for a second. When you can help people build new practices, which takes roughly, 30 to 60 days. So you got to keep people coming back. And they're not coming back for your content. They're coming back for each other. And the evidence of this is so clear at this point. We have it at Mighty Networks. You see it in the really dismal online course completion rates when it's this model of content only, which is why then there's all of these like afterthought communities on, Facebook groups or Slack or other places. And so when we think about how to create a really successful business that both generates incredible results for members, results that they're actually more likely to get when they pay for them, and then a phenomenal business for you that has great impact, that has, phenomenal growth, and is actually more profitable and less work because people are building value and creating value for each other. That's the future of not just being a creator, but being an entrepreneur and being a brand.
This is so meta, but also so beautiful, because I was that person who had to go through and try affiliate marketing, try e-commerce, try creating a course, try. I also did at the time launch a membership and go through all of these things on the journey of how everybody else started, quote unquote, making money online, right? And I have sort of a pet peeve when I tune into podcasts and all the host does is kind of like ask questions of this expert who they had an opportunity to hop on with, and now they have this, 60 minutes to chat with them. And so they leverage that into their own questions.
I have shown up on a lot of podcasts that turn into, oh, this is a strategy session for you. And I'm like, all right, that sounds cool. Like, let's go for it.
What's funny about this, though, and I appreciate you saying that I was about to say, is I really make it a point to almost not do that. Because again, I'm at a place of service. And as a consumer, when I listen to those episodes, I'm like, man, I don't want to know why you're struggling with your open rates on your emails and how this email expert can help you within your topic. But that is kind of where I was going, because I think of all of the times where it's like it makes the most sense is this episode, because you said put your business hat on for a second. Well, for me, all of this is new too. So I have a business hat, but it's not all that well worn, and I'm figuring it out on this journey, and my sharing that with right now an audience, hopefully eventually a community, is really what my big mission is. Whether this podcast and the brand around JKL becomes just the educational piece, and then something more specific and niche becomes the revenue piece, I'm yet to figure it out. But point is, this is an exact example of, this is me learning. I don't know that it's advice per se, but one of those biggest things for me that I've struggled with, that I'm sure a ton of people in your audience and community could learn from, is the topic of niche.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have this target avatar and you want to serve everyone, so to speak. And I'll just share, when I first started a membership, it was this idea that life coaching is expensive. So we could scale it by making it less expensive. Also, the goals that you need to achieve take a long time. Like, you know, even 6 months it's going to take years of continuing to build a new identity and then figure out the how, etc. So it was like as if I was Tony Robbins launching an easy membership, but I had no audience, no distribution. So it also had no clear framework, and it came a little bit from the course type mentality, right? So you fast forward 5 years, and now, maybe because you're a great public salesperson, but also I believe in community, I want to look into building community. How do I, or anyone listening, think about that topic of niche and sort of client avatar or target audience?
So first of all, I don't believe in niche. I don't believe, and here's why. So I've been teaching community design, so how to create a really valuable community and make it run itself. Like that's like, if I do that, I achieve my goal. And so what's my goal? My goal, my purpose is, I want to live in a world where every person on the planet isn't just a member of one community, but multiple amazing communities that ensure that they're living their best life surrounded by the most interesting people on their particular journey. That's not going to happen in a social media feed. That is not going to happen by consuming content. That is not going to happen by being a part of one thing and one thing to rule them all. The way that we know, whether it's looking at sociology, whether it's looking at anthropology, whether it's looking at psychology or neurobiology, is that as human beings, we are made to live in community with other people, and that a diversity of communities, interesting people where we get to like try on different hats and do different things, that is an epic life. And so when I like that's why I am so motivated to really figure out what is it that allows people to see a community, join, contribute, come back over and over and over again until they actually are able to make those changes that they want to make in their lives, or take on a new challenge and do it together with other people on the same path. So let there be no doubt, this is not an easy challenge. I'm going to be working on this for a while. I've worked on it for a while. I'm going to be working on it for a while longer. And I'm totally cool with that. And so the reason that I say niche isn't good enough is because I've now watched it for 5 years trying to teach niches and like, how do you start with a niche and how do you think about a niche? And here's what I've observed. People aren't good at it. It's really hard. It's the wrong framework. A much easier framework for more people to get their head around how to build a successful digital business. And just a side note on that, the reason I'm so passionate about helping people build digital businesses that are foundationally based on community is because I want that world where people are in multiple communities that are contributing to an amazing life. And the fastest, easiest way to get more of those communities built, number one, is software. So pulling in more and more of the strategies that I talk about with People Magic into the software where it can deliver it more easily for more people. But the second piece is I got to teach people how to make money from it, because that's actually going to be the thing that drives or attracts more people in. So more people making money, more people in amazing communities, more people making money, more people in amazing communities. So that's my secret. Like that's my plan, and my purpose. So what I found is that niches are just too hard for too many people to get their head around. Transitions are radically easier. Radically easier. So what I would say is, as you think about your community, and again, I put community at the center of everything. And my specific reason for doing that is because I am a Silicon Valley native. Like, I'm a technologist. And here's the thing we know here that we really don't want everybody else to figure out, is that when you create a community where people are building relationships with each other such that the value of that community increases for everyone with each new person who joins and contributes, you are building what is called a network effect. Now, again, when I use that term, most people's eyes glaze over. So I'm like, just create some people magic. And people are like, oh, that sounds great. Like, that's awesome. I'm into that. I'm like, great, like wonderful. But what we know in Silicon Valley and what we know has created big tech, we know what's created these incredible businesses, is a network effect. And my mission to live in that world where everybody opens their phone first thing in the morning and there's like all of these amazing people doing amazing things and they're like, oh my God, this is awesome, is you got to give each of us as creators or entrepreneurs or as brands the ability to create your own network effect. The equivalent would be something like, what's happening in AI today, where, you've got like these big LLMs, these big models, and everybody's been saying, oh, you can only have big models. Like, that's the only way this is going to work. And what you see is the most interesting innovation that's happening right now is around open source models. And also, how do you start to build new innovation, new technology to be able to have smaller models that are more effective at your specific use case? That is what we are doing with essentially a network effect as a service. So that's all important foundational work that if I do my job right, you never have to think about again. All I want you to think about is, what is that transition that people are going through that you can do the very best job possible of making the decision to identify those people and understand the results or the best year ever for that person, and then go talk to them. If we do our jobs right at Mighty Networks, that is the only thing you have to do. It's the only thing you have to do. Because then software can make it really so much easier for that community, for that network effect, to run itself. How? By doing all of the hard work to connect people to each other in the context of your purpose. Your, like, who are you bringing together? What is the transition? What is their best year ever? And if we do our jobs right, you don't have to worry about the admin and the moderation and the, hey guys, what do you think? What are we doing today? Because that is all taken care of with software, and specifically software that leans heavily into using AI to be able to do that. So a little bit of a long-winded answer, but I think it's super important because what's coming, and it's here in pockets. One of the things that is a classic line that engineers will always tell you is, the future is here. It's just not evenly distributed. And the thing I can tell you living in the future is that if you are an aspiring creator or entrepreneur and you haven't sort of pick the people that you want to serve or the transition you want to serve. Or if you're struggling, like you're like, I did all the things that all the gurus told me to go do. I have an email list, I have a newsletter, I got my courses, I got my passive income. I'm in like 3 masterminds that I'm spending, $20,000 a year on. Like I'm doing all the things and it's still crickets. It's still not working. This is a better model. This is a different model. And I think we will see here, and we're already starting to see here, that it is the future. It's just an easier way to build a business.
In terms of the model, I like it. I remember, 5 years ago pulling out a calculator and being like, wait a second. And this was more around like Patreon, thinking like, if I have X number of patrons, then I can, per month, and then, oh my God, I'll be able to do my podcast and it'll be able to fuel it. I think a lot of people start there where they see the easy back of the napkin math and like, this is genius. It's a lot harder to execute than just that little calculator gives you, or at least in everyone's experience when they're starting out.
So this is why. And this is super, this is probably, if you don't take anything else away from, listening to this conversation, it's this. Because Patreon is about you. And the most successful businesses overall, but especially these kinds of network effect businesses, are about them. So this idea, the mistakes I see are that the creators think that it's about them, think it's about, people just want to sit and watch their videos and consume versus act. Number 2 is, if I charge $5, I'll get more people. It's the price of a cup of coffee. And the reality is that you are so much better off building a community, again, monetized through whether it's a paid membership, whether it's a one-time fee for a course, whether it's a challenge, whether it's an event. You are so much better off at a higher price with more value that comes from, and this is the important part, members doing things together, members sharing their stories, experiences, and ideas, members building relationships on that path to results in transformation that they cannot get on their own.
I feel like this is one of those episodes where I'm like, oh, we could take this in a million directions and go Joe Rogan style for 3 hours, which we don't. I know maybe we can do it again someday. But when I think of that, it, first of all, is beautiful, your mission and purpose for life, because it makes me think of a term that I'm often trying to share with people, and it's to have an infinite game. An infinite game for me is I was in traditional education. Prior to that, I struggled as a student because I really didn't fit into the system. Then I watched for many years other youth not fit into the system, some to the point of getting kicked out, becoming homeless, drug addicted, etc. Some being able to play the game and get by and maybe get into a job they don't love. And I think of my daughter in a few years going through that path too. And scared might be a strong word, but I care about her having options. And so my infinite game is trying to tackle how can we help youth learn to own something. It could be a small side hustle, a lemonade stand, or sneaker art, and or maybe they want to follow in footsteps like an incredible leader like yourself and build a software company. But anywhere along that continuum, they don't understand wealth and ownership from a why or a how. And so that is my infinite game. Ken Robinson worked on it. John Taylor Gatto worked on it. Rest in peace. They've both passed away. And I feel like I'm taking that torch to work on this. When I think of the idea of, you mentioned people and the transition that they're going through. What is that transformation? It makes me think of identity and psychographics. One of my struggles in this whole infinite game is the topic of a demographic, and that's age. where does that come up with the idea of trying to build a community?
I mean, there are different, the whole point of being alive is being in a community. That's the whole point. So if anything, we're at what I like to think about as a awkward transition. So we're no longer, in the past world of people being a part of, you know, community organizations, faith-based organizations, service-based organizations. I would say, I think, when you look at teenagers, there's this bifurcation, especially around socioeconomic lines between, if you're, it's binary. There aren't like casual sports. You either have to be on club teams traveling every weekend and have a lot of money to do it, or you're at home on your phone. So I think, we're in this transitional period where the way that we offer and define community for whether it's kids, whether it's teenagers, whether it's young adults, whether it's young men, young women, whether it's at, 20 something, 30 something, 40 something and beyond, we are in a transition. And it's not a pretty one. It's not a pretty one, but I think it's really important that we start with first principles of, as human beings, we are made to live in community. We are going to get the best results. We are going to live the most interesting lives. We are going to take the most risks. We are designed to go on quests and go on quests with each other. That's the reason we have the hero's journey. That's the reason that is such a powerful story about what we as human beings are here to do. So what I would say is that no societal change can happen without thinking about the community piece. And not just the community piece. What does that mean? Like, well, let's dive deeper. It means, what's the challenge? What's the quest? And one of the things that we've become so afraid of something bad happening to people under the age of 18. And really the thought that people under the age of 18 are children. They're not children. They're not children. And if anything, the longer we wait to have human beings take on quests, take on challenges, the scarier and scarier it gets for me. So I would say that there is such opportunity. And the question is, are you as a creator, or as I as a creator or entrepreneur, whatever we are, as us as human beings, are we going to be a part of the movement that takes what is, again, this awkward transition and pushes really hard into a future where every person is a member of multiple amazing communities that have challenges, that have quests, that say a life truly lived is not one that is without challenge, without pain, without some level of suffering. And whether that's in team sports, whether that's in mastery of music or some other skill, or whether that is, I think, what has become harder and harder for more and more people, which is, how do you build relationships with people? Because we are now fighting really a casino in our hands that is designed to keep our attention on something other than relationship building. Now, I believe that the absolute best thing any of us can do is work on things that take that casino and say, okay, we're going to take what this casino is doing to generate advertising revenue for very large companies, and we're going to turn it into something that assumes the casino techniques are really effective, but we're going to put it towards a different end. We're going to put it towards relationships. We're going to put it towards quests. We're going to put it towards, how can people do things that we know lead to being able to look back on your life and say, I did something. I built something. I was a part of something. I was loved. I was challenged. I overcame challenges. That's why we're here.
And the reason I ask specifically about the age thing is because for me, it's not necessarily about, I don't think validation would be the right word, or, trying to tell someone, yes, you should do this, because I know that we all have to figure out our own hurdles along the way. And there's no real solid answer. It's kind of like everything can work to an extent, but you do have a lot of, really earned and like specific knowledge that I appreciate. And I'll say that I used to be a really successful personal trainer. One of the memberships or communities that I think I could build really well would be something like how to be fit after 40. And I feel like there's a very easy path to this is what I create and this is what I do. And a lot of people will give me advice saying, yeah, build something simple like that and then go help youth or people who are maybe don't have the means to do it in more of a charitable way, right? But as you said, people pay attention to what they pay for. I think there's a middle ground here. And an example of what I think of doing is creating something where there's courses on how to be a digital creator, how to start your first digital business. And maybe that's how to start your newsletter, how to start a podcast, whatever. And they're all free because to me, it's like, whatever, it's a friggin' course. But that community can support each other. And maybe that's where the monetization comes in. And then, like a lot of my fellow authors and friends and stuff who go into schools and do public speaking, I can do that completely for free. And we can get into marketing 101. I have a QR code on my back, maybe that the kids can scan to find how to get in there and get some education. Now, I've heard you share that Mighty is kind of like the Shopify for communities. Shopify was built 5 minutes from my house. I reached out to Toby about I don't know, I'd have to pull this email. It'd be fun. 10 years ago, maybe, to be like, hey, you should create the same exact thing, but for memberships and communities. And I want to start the first one. You should create the Shopify High School and we'll teach all the things that aren't taught in high school. That at that point, I was the person who was like, hey, I want somebody else to give me a job. Because I was maybe scared of being an entrepreneur. I don't know. But that concept of this is what you aren't learning in school. This is how we can support each other in it. Look, all these courses are free, but we support each other within the community is kind of where I'm headed, I think. But my wonder around putting the business hat on is, does it need to be that specific where it's like this thing is for teens?
Yes. It does need to be that specific. And I think that, again, teens in what transition? Teens in what transition? That would be the next question that I would ask you. Because especially today, identity is much more specific than it's ever been in the past. Digital natives are much more specific. Any of us are much more specific than we have been in the past. And, demographic information leads to some aspects of your identity, but because the internet has sort of an infinite set of interests and passions and goals that you can kind of discover and go down different rabbit holes with, being more specific is key. Now, for somebody who's like, well, Gina, you just said 5 minutes ago, don't worry about niches. What I want to just clarify, you start with transitions. They're the easiest. They're the easiest to get people into a course, into a community. And I think it's interesting. And the thing I would just push back on is, your focus is on, oh, what am I offering for free? Oh, these are free courses. Well, what I think is so interesting is, yes, it's awesome that it's free. 14-year-olds, They're on YouTube and they're watching videos. But the thing that I would caution is that you're starting with the packaging as opposed to the purpose. And I would start potentially with the purpose. Like I want to start with this nucleus of a community. My ultimate goal is going to be bringing them together and building a culture around how I take them on a quest. Like, what is that quest? Where are they when they're in their ordinary world? What is going to be that moment that they don't reject the mentor? Because there's always in the hero's journey the moment where they're like, I'm busy, I got my life. And now we've got literally a casino in their hand that is an infinite attention grabber. That's what it is. So how do you become the mentor? And then what is that special world that you are creating for them? Who are their allies? What's the enemy? Who are the people that are going to go on that quest with you? And as you go through that quest and achieve things that you didn't think were possible because of the people that you are doing it with, and then return to the ordinary world, that I'd spend more time on that than free courses. Because my concern, and I don't know if I'm right, this would be my concern, is it's really hard to make that interesting enough for just by saying, I want to do free videos. I think there's a place for them, but I think that what's the quest is even more interesting.
Yeah, and just to clarify, what I was wanting to point out was that the courses would end up being free, or the content essentially, so that anybody in the world could consume it, as opposed to like you have to get past this paywall.
But again, I think if you start with the what, not the how, I think that could be actually, it could open. I know for me, when I start with the what do I want to accomplish, and then how do I do it, I get some really unconventional solutions.
Yeah, and for some weird reason, that's what I kind of left out, I guess, or said it really quickly. But the idea of giving them an opportunity to own something, and that's where I guess I still am a little bit stuck, right? Because it's like, what does it mean to start a business? That is so broad, as we talked about that continuum earlier. So the other one could be how to start writing. It's a little broad. What about how to start writing online? That's a little more specific.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I have thought millions of hours about what this could be. And, the thing I mentioned about reaching out to Toby and anybody who I think should still do this is that sort of like high school that should exist, that doesn't exist yet, because they'll also bring them into an ecosystem like Shopify or whatever. And Shopify, I know, did do that. They sent the business kits to anybody who wanted to start a business as a teen. But so it's like helping guide them through that and work with each other to, hey, this is what I learned. This is what...
I think it's a great idea.
With online business, do you think that's too broad?
I do. But I think it's a great place to start. And then what I would do is look through it. I would look at it through the lens of, what are the transitions? Is it a college freshman who's lost? Is it a rising junior entering their senior year and basically saying, I don't know if I want to go to college? I think that could be really interesting.
That would be.
Yeah. And so now that starts to get really, really fun, because you could essentially create a Greek system for kids who aren't going to go to college, or are in their first year of community college and are bored. Or they're like, all my friends just went away to college and I'm here at home. Or all my friends are here at home and I want something more, but I don't know how to get it. You see, like you could pick any of those flavors of transition and start to build something so much more effective that is so much more easily adopted than maybe just the way that I heard it, which was I'm going to put free courses and then around how to build an online business.
Mm-hmm.
You start to get so like now you can see, and I think I've seen this over and over again. You just see, oh yeah, that's right. Like, I'm not a high school senior who just graduated and I'm not going to college. Like I'm not that person, but I can picture them. That's the power of a transition, is that you actually, even when you're talking to somebody who's not your ideal member, they're going to be a part of helping you, because I'm like, oh yeah, that's Harley. Like that's my youngest brother. And he is doing exactly that. And what would that experience look like for him? Wow, he could meet all sorts of people all over the place that are on the same path that he's on, that his friends now graduating from high school and starting college in a few months, he's going to be separated from them. What does that experience look like for him? So, I think that is a really good example of the power of choosing a transition as opposed to a niche.
You've got me excited. And I think I shared with you before, I really just appreciate all of, who you are as both a creator, but just a personal mentor as well. And a guide on my hero's journey. And I had shared that I'm going to go live and work my way through that People Magic podcast that you created. And I'm so excited for that, because whether it takes me 2 hours or 8 hours, like everyone's going to get to kind of see my thoughts and my brainstorming and all of that around it. And there were some of these certain roadblocks that I have that I've gone up and down with over 5 years. Like, right. Well, and one of them is everyone saying, don't like sell to people who are wealthy, so to speak, right? Like the people with the money. Well, yeah, the juniors going into, seniors as high school, like you mentioned, they can't play sports, some of them, because they can't afford it.
Right.
So to me, it's like ignoring all the advice I have. Sell high ticket,
Well, I'll give you another example though of just that. Like, again, once you decide on your transition, what's really interesting is just taking the example of my brother Harley. He has a job. He's spending money on stuff. What's he spending money on? Probably not something as cool as like having friends and learning how to create a business, which is going to make him more money.
Right.
So I hear what you're saying related to, but I should go after rich people. Well, I think actually when you look at any human being, people pay attention to what they pay for, and they're spending money on something. So by making it something that costs money, and maybe you have, applications for scholarships, and maybe there are people that want to support you with scholarships, but I'm very careful. It's a scholarship, and maybe there is something that they pay forward. But we've gotten in this habit of, or maybe just a false assumption that something has to be free. Nothing is free. Nothing is free. Churches always cost money. Going back to the very beginning of time, the very beginning of churches at least, being a member of community has never been free. Free is not even free on tech platforms where there are quote unquote free groups. Those aren't free. You are paying for those groups with your attention, with your data. So I think we need to reframe how we think about what we want people to do. And again, I think, people sitting on their couch consuming content, it's not really why we were put on planet Earth. It makes a lot of people a lot of money, but I believe passionately that there is something more. And there is something more for each and every one of us to be able to contribute to.
I love it. That means a lot. And as I think about this, it gets me really excited. I'm assuming that your thought would be that yes, it needs to be that specific. Teens going through a transition. I'm going to workshop that. the idea would be that they could stay forever, I'm assuming, and support each other though, right? Like with these communities that do their marketing really specific, they have it dialed and they got their client avatar, so to speak, they still kind of can stay forever, right?
Yeah. Or you say you graduate out of this and you graduate into this other community.
Right.
Or you say that you become an elder in the community, and as we bring new people in, like those are all
That's the fun stuff.
yeah, that's the stuff where it's just like, first of all, there's a lot of precedent for how to do this. A lot of precedent. People have been building communities for a very, very long time. And then separately, you get to learn with your community where y'all want to go together. I'm a big believer in starting with a point of view and then listening and staying open to adjusting that point of view. You don't want to, in my experience, be like, hey guys, what do you think? What do you want? I'm going to let the community decide. That tends not to end particularly well. You don't actually get the best signal in those in that kind of a model. But hey, here's what I'm thinking, let's experiment and workshop this together. Oh wow, this is what I think we learned, and here's what I'm doing next. People love that. But I always think about it as the showing up with the, hey guys, what do you want? What do you think? Like that does not work. That is not going to work.
Yeah, let's not do that.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Hopefully this was what you wanted to accomplish.
100%. I appreciate it so much. I jotted down things like balancing life, why business and wealth building, having a Stanford MBA versus high school today, and, why you went into tech and all these topics. And it's always the case that we can never get to all of them.
For sure.
Maybe some other day. But I just want to say how much I appreciate and how much of an impact this episode will have.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time too. All right. Take care.
Thank you.